Hi, my name is Moe Rogan, and I'm with my friend Chad Kroger, and you're listening to the Moe
And today we're going to be diving into the case of an 11-year-old running away from his residential school.
Now, this is one of the earliest cases in the 60s scoop, and what I mean by that is he was found in 1966, only 6 years after the first residential schools opened.
Right, but quickly, what were residential schools, Mo?
Residential schools were schools built for the purpose of housing stolen children from indigenous families. I say stolen as in taken away unwillingly, but the government had issued permission to take children away. These schools weren't ordinary schools. They were ran by the Presbyterian Church, or at least the one he was in, and more specifically nuns and fathers. Every kid was ruthlessly punished, and some raped and a lot killed. It was horrible. Kids were stripped of their indigenous heritage, and being the next generation, this had serious consequences for the indigenous down the line. They weren't even allowed to leave or be visited.
We can explain more later on that. Thanks, Mo. About the 11-year-old boy, his name was Chanie Wenjack, an indigenous boy from Northern Ontario. He was taken at just 9 years old to the residential school in Cecilia Jeffrey Residential School in Kenora, 400 miles away from home. There aren't many pictures of Charlie. Only around 5 police report pictures were taken. They depict a young, frail boy wearing a thin wool jacket and ankle-high leather boots. He had no identification, only an intact jar with matches, all dry. That's all he had.
And wow. And the reason he decided to escape was he was lonely, and likely didn't understand why he'd been there, or at least one of the reasons. An important thing to note is he isn't the only young kid that tried to escape. Many kids before and after had tried, many meeting similar fates. In fact, when he left, he was with 2 friends, Ralph and Jackie McDonald. They waited till the supervisors were distracted.
If anyone is wondering why we know so much on this specific kid, it's because of Gord Downey from the Tragically Hip heard a famous Canadian band about what had happened, and he made a song called The Stranger. The song depicts the story of Chanie and in a sad and melancholy way, just as the real-life event turned out. He brought this story to many who've heard the number of dead kids, but having a real look at just one person opened up many eyes.
And then they left.
Just imagining what Chanie had to go through just brings a tear to my eye every time. Being forcibly taken from your entire family at such a young age and being forced to run away because of the abuse is almost unimaginable thing to have to go through.
Yeah, I totally agree, Chad. And I'm so glad this case got the coverage it did from Gord Downey's book and song, as so many indigenous cases like this get swept under the rug.
Yeah, it really is awesome that a celebrity as talented as Gord Downey shares the truth of Chanie and his family's story through the song.
That's a great point, Chad. Moving back to the story, Chanie and his friends were wearing thin wool coats as the day had been nice when they left. Had they brought their parkas, things could have ended up differently. They'd assumed the reason he left was because he was abused and sexually assaulted. As they were walking, they came across the McDonald boys' uncle, Charles Kelly. Well, they stayed for a while, but Chanie wasn't exactly welcome. Charles's income was barely enough to support himself, so he took his nephews in, but Chanie went on, after resting, to continue walking.
Yeah, and to just talk a little bit more about his family, Mo. His family didn't even know about Chanie's tragic death in October of 1966 until 5 months later when they saw it in a Maclean's article published in February of 1967.
Wow. That is just so incredibly heartbreaking for his family to find out that way. And his walk lasted about 36 hours before the winter conditions became harsh, and he succumbed to the injuries and the cold. Imagine if that's how you'd found out. And Chad, the police report said that he was bruised from the falls he'd taken and that his lungs had been infected. It appeared that he'd had surgery before the school, but indigenous medical records, especially from then, are impossible to track. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, it really is, Mo. Incredibly heartbreaking once again, and I'm so very happy that the story really opened the public's eyes to the tragedies these poor children went through and allows us to understand and also open up a lot of doors for the possibility of reconciliation. And, well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for stopping by the Moe Rogan Experience. And on next week's episode, we will be discussing the origin of the pyramids and how they came to be.
Stay tuned.